aggregation platform that allows you to aggregate. If you want to pay different billers, we can provide such a service for you. And some of the things that you may, some of the products that you may associate with us. So if you are basically purchasing a token uh, through any third party, an electricity token through any third party platform, that token is actually passing through our platforms. That's one of the things that we do. So I'm sure almost all of you have used our service in that manner. If we also provide wallets, this is becoming a more frequently used tool in terms of the fintech environment. You understand that sometimes you will need platforms where you can actually store value for your customers and be able to then also run low cost accounts. So sometimes our systems that we use are very expensive, but if you want to run low cost accounts, we provide you a wallet service. And you have noticed that a lot of companies, telcos, you have noticed that retailers and things like that, they have gone into the financial space. And to acquire some of these financial systems, to acquire the traditional banking systems might be expensive for you. And we provide these wallets. I think that's basically what I just wanted to highlight. We are here for you. We are local. We understand your needs. And I will still talk about what I said was my number one professional passion yesterday. We also mentor the best developers in the country who are coming out of our universities. And all our systems, they've been developed by your brothers and sisters from all over this country, locally here. And we are proud to be doing that. Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Mkarakati. You've really set the profile right. By the way, he's also a runner, Honorable Minister. I know him from running, and I can see that he's also running with e-solutions very well. Thank you very much, Mr. Mkarakati. Okay, so we're just going to give, I'm going to ask the DJs to give us some music as we have a table being set.
That favorite song of mine, you remember?
Yes. The
Please
table
play
is,
that one.
yeah. The table is being set for something very interesting in the presence of all of you guys. We have been privileged to get that and to be able to witness what's going to happen today. So stay, what you say? You say stay what? In touch?
No, it's keep your eyes connected to the screen.
Oh, keep your eyes connected to the screen.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So can we have some music?
And I had a room as well. When this song was playing, they said ETT guys wanted to do the Zumba. Then I told them, no, it's not time for that for now.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right. So
all right. We hold on. Thank you, DJ. Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, once again, welcome to the afternoon session. Without taking much of your time,
We're going to introduce a very informative man that has an informative topic to talk about. But before that, can we have a bio profile for this person?
okay. I know you guys think I'm lying when I say I know this person, I know this one, but the particular one we're talking about, we had an incident or an event where we were standing passengers for a flight from Harare to Joburg. And yes, a flight, we are standing passengers. We're the two standing passengers on a flight from Harare to Joburg. That's back in 2018. And this is where I know this gentleman from. And he'll confirm, because most of you might think Shara is lying, but he'll definitely confirm we're standing passengers and we had the best conversation ever. And I'm hoping he's going to meet the same standard that he met that day today. And his profile, mind you, this is a chief operating officer, was a standing passenger of CBZ Agro Yield. He is one of the largest financing institutions in Africa. CBZ Agro Yield is a subsidiary of the Zimbabwean listed CBZ Holdings, the largest financial services group in Zimbabwe. He began his career in the equities division at Goldman Sachs in New York, where he advised global multi-strategy hedge funds managing up to $2 billion US. In Africa, he has gone on to advise on several significant transactions involving the Fortune 500 companies in the agribusiness, telecoms, finance, and FMCG sectors. And I was a standing passenger with him. He has been a keynote speaker at the World Bank, spring meetings in Washington, D.C. He's a regular on BBC World Business News, commenting on African capital markets in Africa, China trade and debt dynamics. Simbarashe sits on several boards in Africa and has a bachelor's in finance from Howard University in Washington, D.C., and a master in business administration from London Business School in the United Kingdom. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for Simbarashe Mungu with today's keynote this afternoon, which is on value addition, technological innovations in industry and agriculture. Oh, there's a mic, okay.
One, two. Shara, thank you for that overly generous introduction. I don't think I'll ascribe to a lot of that, but I can neither deny or confirm. No, I confirm we were standing passengers on a flight from Harare to Joburg, and we indeed had a phenomenal conversation, really connected, and even with the air hostesses. I think it was actually a very nice conversation. It was a pleasure to meet you. No, it's a true privilege for me to be here, to be graced by what I think are probably the most important people in our country. This is the true ruling generation of our time, those who are involved in all aspects of tech. And so it's a genuinely a humbling experience for me to be here. And I am not a tech person at all, quite frankly. However, I recognize the value and importance of this space. And it's been instrumental in what I do. And I think it's something that, you know, back when we were in college in the States, you know, coding was not something that, you know, it wasn't a class that you take. But now it's commonplace. Definitely when I went to business school, it was definitely a prerequisite for a lot of our classes. And that's just one aspect of tech. Anyway, what I want to talk to you today about is my experience as a non-tech person in this field. What I experienced when I moved to CBZ, firstly at CBZ Capital, which is the proprietary investing arm of the bank, which is in charge of all the mergers and acquisitions that you see. And whilst there, we had an interesting conundrum that you're all aware of. There was what you call the command agriculture system, or the command agriculture that we know of. And command agriculture was born out of a unique situation in 2015-16, when we had a very, very intense drought. You know, we consume about 2.1 to 2.2 million tons of maize. You know, maize is our staple grain in this country. And in that particular year, we only had local production of 500,000 tons. So there was a massive shortfall. And the only way we could supplement this shortfall was through imports. And government resources were constrained. So people can draw a line with the macroeconomic situation that we then faced thereon. You know, currency issues and many other issues that we then experienced. And government decided that, you know, we needed to come up with a program where we can localize the production of maize and other crops. So to cut a long story short, government started this program. We had successes and we had challenges in those years. In 2017, we breached, or we produced a lot more than what we consumed. But 2017 was a brilliant, a very good rainfall season for Zimbabwe. And there's a strong correlation between rainfall and not only just rainfall, but the distribution of rainfall. That's actually more important than the absolute amount of rainfall. So you can have 1,000 mils in one day, and that can't count for a good season. But if you're having 5 mils daily consistently between the months of between late October and March, right, that is, you can do all your correlations, all your statistical analysis, and see that you are likely to have a very good season, especially in 6 key districts in the country. 6 districts in this country can feed the entire nation. That much I can tell you. If you look historically, Zimbabwe probably had about 350,000. In fact, Mashonaland province alone had 350,000 hectares of irrigated crop. Now, as an entire country, we have less than 150,000 hectares. So that shows you the upside and what needs to be done in order to get us to a steady state as a nation in terms of food production. Anyway, this program carried on, as we all know. And as we all know, government was running the program, and there were a lot of challenges. There was a lot of challenges with input distribution, inputs coming on time. We had the COVID situation. We had farmers purporting to produce, but in some instances not producing and selling inputs. At the point of maturity of the crop, you'd have instances where, in fact, a lot of instances where farmers would side market the crop, and hence government was not able to recover the investment it had made into these farmers or with these farmers. So it decided that maybe it needed to transition this program onto a financial institution. Right? And at the time, there was no real playbook around how to successfully transition government programs. And historically, it's very difficult to transition any government program from government to the private sector. It's extremely challenging, especially a program of that size. So it came to CBZ as a bank, but banks and their systems and the way they do things, I think it was not, that there was no synonymity or there was no congruence with how government had run the program. And we had no systems in place to manage, 30 to 50,000 farmers wanting to have inputs distributed within a short period of time, within 6 weeks, all right? So imagine moving hundreds of thousands of tons of wheat, fuel, seed, chemicals from all borders across Southern Africa into Zimbabwe, issuing LCs, confirming LCs, getting each and every input down to a GMB in Checheche, in Gokwe, anywhere you needed to be, all in record time in 6 weeks. And somehow having technology overlays that could manage that efficiently. All right. I don't think anyone was prepared for that, and neither was CBZ. However, we had to take on this burden, and we did. We did, understanding that over time we'll right-size the program. However, we still face the same challenges that government was facing. Farmers purporting to be farmers, coming to get inputs, selling inputs. If you went to Karoi or Chinoi, you'd look at these vehicles and houses. If you went to Gandakwaru pane dzimba dzinonzi makomand, because during that period of time, people would take inputs, sell the inputs, and simply buy, cars, homes, or whatever it is. But very little not very little, but marginal production was taking place. And you have an issue whereby the good farmers, those trustworthy farmers, which would like to believe are the majority of farmers, they would say, well, why do I have to pay back a loan when I can see all these thousands of people who are selling inputs? I mean, this even spilled over across to the other side of the border, whereby you could get maize or wheat, inputs for cheaply, simply because they're being sold. Anyway, so this was the problem. And the key issue is for us never to run away from our own problems, but to face the problem. So I remember our group CEO used to have these Friday calls, which is what we used to call them. A few of you here are actually very familiar with this story. And in one of the calls, he said, Simba, I need you to be involved in these calls because I need other people to help with different perspectives around how we can manage some of these programs. So anyway, I got involved in the calls and I started giving feedback on these calls. And as a son of an agronomist, my father was the first graduate in the first graduating class at Chibero, the agricultural college. And he was the first black manager for Tonga Juliet, back then called Tate and Lyle or Hippo Valley Estates, Triangle Mkwasini at the time. So through living with him and growing up with him and waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go and burn sugarcane, I learned a lot about what he did, but I hated it. I wanted to get away from agriculture as soon as possible. But anyway, it caught up with me because just the intuitive memory I had of how we used to do things began to apply. I used to then apply these frameworks into the conversations in terms of how we need to manage inputs, how we need to manage farmers, how we need to assess the credit quality of our farmers. So one of the interesting things is that we had, CBZ had invested in technology from local vendors, right, who did a very good job because they understood, they could unpack the problems very well in terms of what the problems were. But enforcement and implementation of what they said, of what they'd built, that was a whole different problem altogether. Right? Quite frankly, it was difficult for us to trust the local vendors. They were also compromised. For whatever reason, they were also compromised because of the size of the program, the funds involved in the program, the hugely influential people that are involved in the program. All of that came into play, whereby even local vendors just said to ourselves, you know what, we tried to enforce some of these mechanisms or implement some of these changes, but we feel that there's undue influence from whichever offices. So it meant that essentially we were back to step one, whereby leakages just maintained and maintained and maintained. And so I joined this particular team in 2021 in February. 2020, I think, 2020 in February. And I remember getting to the offices of CBZ Agri-Yield from my cushy offices at CBZ Capital Borrowdale and seeing the ensuing chaos. And those who have tried to get inputs from command will understand the thousands of people that would throng Beverly Court looking for, for fuel vouchers. Some people would stay there and camp overnight. Some people would have placards to say, no, we are from, Urungwe District X, and hence we are going to light a fire and stay here all night until we get our inputs. People would come and live in our offices. and it was true chaos. And there was no overriding system that was managing, one, the availability and the quantification of inputs that existed, the distribution of these inputs, credit origination, understanding who the farmer is, onboarding the farmer, and distributing the inputs to the farmer, and also recovering our loans and ensuring that our maize went through to GMB. So I sat there overwhelmed, and the truth of the matter is just I prayed. That's exactly what I did. That's the truth of the matter. I was so overwhelmed, I didn't know what to do. And I remember sitting in with a very brilliant analyst that I had brought along. Her name is Sekai. And I remember saying to Sekai, you know, Sekai, you and I can probably not solve this problem if we look at it in its, holistically, but let's try and break it down. So we spent the next 2-3 weeks sitting in each and every single division. So I was a teller, I was a coupon clerk, an accounting clerk. I did all the jobs possible, all right, for 2 to 3 weeks. And I'll just sit with someone for 6 hours, or for 2 hours, or for 3 hours, learning and observing what they were doing, not commenting and just writing down notes. That's all I did, all right, for 2 to 3 weeks, because I knew we did not have enough time. When you start a program such as this, agriculture is cyclical. Right now is the input distribution time. It's where 80 to 90% of your loan book is originated between the months of October and December, right? So if you miss that window, right, you will have another year to try and solve the problem. And I joined in February. The problem had already been created, but wheat was coming up in March and April, right? So I had to have a solution in 30 days. All right. And I thought, well, if we can control or bring about a technological solution, all right, control credit, and control HR, somehow everything else is symptomatic of those 3 things. Okay. And that was from our assessment of the problem. So if we have an IT system that could just control how we distribute to farmers, what is your credit history? When did you farm and where did you farm? Where is your farm? Give us a GPS location of your farm. Just simple data points. Just those alone would allow us to partially solve the problem, and that's what we did. Now, the problem is that there is no incentive, one, for the internal staff members or for the general public to use an IT system. Zero incentive, because it tracks pretty much everything. And that's where HR came into place, whereby we simply said from today onwards, the policies and procedures are such that if you don't enter this into a system, right, then there are problems, okay? And we knew that there were going to be breaches. There are going to be people that are going to test you, right? And you have to act very fast when people do that. So that's what we did in the first 2 weeks, first 2 months. And we just entered everything into the system. We didn't judge anyone. We didn't want to know we just wanted you to enter things into a system. And through that, we realized that most people either had fake offer letters, they actually didn't have farms that they said that they had. If you ask them to define, where they stayed or their ID numbers, they would have flawed ID numbers or ID numbers that didn't exist. Many data points that we then gleaned just from having people enter data into a system. And then after that, we then diagnosed what it is that we could do. We then said, okay, fine. If this is the problem, let's come up with a system that can manage all these nodes. So we said we want a system that can do a number of things. Number one, it has to say, it has to confirm that you are who you are, as easy as that sounds, right? So connecting through the central registry system, and confirming your ID, confirming where you live, and all sorts of things. So we wanted a system that could do that. We wanted a system that could confirm that actually you are the owner of an offer letter or a titled farm, right? That was number 2. We wanted a system that could track whether you're a farmer with us before, whether you farmed with us before, yes or no. These are just simple assumptions, right? We also wanted a system that could integrate into GMB and all the suppliers of agriculture inputs, whether it be Seedco, Trek, FSG, Windmill, and all sorts of different players, right? We also wanted a system that could not only integrate into all those players, but could quantify what they have in stock at that particular time, all right? We needed a system that could come up with a stop order to say, well, if you're going to redeem or if you're going to get a bag of fertilizer, which creates a loan, all right, that system could speak to whatever system is in GMB to say, this is the loan that's been created, and hence when a person delivers, all right, that loan is expunged or deducted, all right? Now, you want a system that could speak to many different players, both in the private sector and in the public sector. And that was extremely difficult. Extremely difficult. Because as you know, with APIs, everyone's got different systems and different gateways, all right? And it's very difficult to do integrations into everyone, to speak to everyone at the same time. And we wanted this done in record time, okay? Maybe to you it was easy, but in this particular case, it had just never been done before. No one had been able to speak to all the systems, the tax systems, the banking systems, FlexTube, all systems, and have this integrated into one, whereby I could see the farmer journey real time. And you're talking about 30 to 50,000 farmers, okay? And remember, you have smaller players who are also suppliers who have not invested in tech like the bigger players. And so they had to reinvest in tech in real time in a very short period of time in order to qualify to be a supplier. And those suppliers, even though they might be small, they are hugely influential. If you leave that person out, right, you're probably compromising the existence of your entire program, right, because you don't know who the owner of that system is. So we had to have a symbiotic relationship whereby we had to work with all sorts of suppliers who had different varying degrees of sophistication in terms of the IT systems. And I say this to say I feel the most important part of this were the soft skills. It wasn't the hard skills. It was how to speak to people, engage them, have them understand what we are trying to do, go into every office imaginable within the public sector and government, and explain to them what we're trying to do. Take the POS machines, all the different redemption points that we're going to use, take them to every office so that they may have an experiential knowledge of what we're trying to do. We made no assumptions. So we probably, in my office, we probably had the biggest stakeholder management map that you could ever think of. And these were frameworks I had learned in business school. Understand and map out each and every stakeholder that you know, whether you like them or not, and engage and take them as part of the customer journey. We engaged every single person until we got a critical mass of individuals in government, the public sector, private sector, NGOs saying, this is a good thing. Right? And all of a sudden, support started coming from all areas and all angles, including internally within CBZ. I think one of the most critical things as well was the fact that I had phenomenal support from my group CEO and my chairman. Some of these things you can't do without that level of support, because at times you'll need to break the rules, right? And at least if you've let them know that you're going to break the rules, they'll be aware of what's going on. Okay. And literally, this is what we did. So I literally became a project manager of many, many individuals and many vendors who are in the IT space, and yet I had zero IT experience. None whatsoever. As I said earlier, we had local vendors, and the problem with local vendors was a trust deficit. They had been part of the problem, unfortunately. And so sadly, I had to go abroad all the way to Singapore and New Zealand to go and get a system that we could implement internally for millions of dollars. All right? All that could have gone to local vendors, but the trust deficit was huge. The local vendors understood the problem, they could unpack it, they were brilliant developers. They probably did more work in allowing that international vendor to come up to, onboard the CBZ system than anyone else. But the fact that they had local servers and local data that was manipulated, or that could be manipulated, it's a risk that we as bankers simply couldn't take. We simply couldn't do that. So now we go all the way to New Zealand, to Singapore, came up with this system, which is called the EasyTap system that we now use, and that became our signature program. But before we did that, we had to test the waters, because when you enforce technology in a historically problematic program, it stops the pilferage dead on straight. And if you have 37,000 purported farmers or 4,000 purported wheat farmers, when you know that they're less than 1,000, that's 3,000 that are going to go off the rails in an instant. And as much as you think that's a good thing, it can become problematic for you personally. So you have to manage that transition. And so you ask, how did we do it? We say to ourselves, let's actually just ensure that particular modules come into effect over time. Right? And we ranked the most important modules and said, you know what? The tech people say these are the most important modules, but we think based on the history of this problem, let's just figure out where most of the pilferage was taking place. In our case, most of the pilferage was taking place with fuel. People come up with fuel vouchers. I'm sure during a lot of the time you'd see that this command fuel is available and you could buy it at a discount to the pump price. I think this was common knowledge. So I remember during 2021, if I'm not mistaken, and Ben Law can correct me if he's here, we simply said, okay, fine, let's take the GPS location of wheat farmers. And when you're using NDVI, right, which is just looking at the chlorophyll content of a leaf, the green leaf of a crop, you can see all the circles in a country in winter because it's dry. And those circles are either wheat or barley. Just two crops, right? Or maybe sorghum, but wheat or barley. So in that instance, we isolated all the Delta. Delta also does a lot of contracting for barley. We isolated that crop, and then we remained with all the wheat farmers. At the time, CBZ AgriYield was financing 80% of the wheat production, right? And so we now knew each and every farmer's wheat field and what hectarage they had, and what their implied yield was with a 95% confidence level. Okay. So what happens is we used to just distribute coupons for fuel at the beginning of a season. So if you say you're doing 1 hectare, we give you 130 liters for the entire, for the entire season, which will take care of your tillage, harvesting, and so forth and so forth. So we decided, no. Let's actually only disperse based on a function or based on what you've done. So you would say to ourselves, well, you've started land prep. So we'd give you fuel for land prep, okay? Then you say, well, now you want to do other things. Then we'd say, okay, how many liters of fuel, how many hectares have you done? And someone would say, no, I've done 400 hectares. Look at my offer letter, it's worth 400 hectares. Then I would simply say, well, if you've got a 400 hectare offer letter, and if you do the math, 9 times out of 10, you're probably using about 20 to 30% of your farm for actual production, based on statistical analysis that we had done on all farms. All right? So that person would come in, and our employees would be victimized and so forth. And then we would say, we've got the GPS location of your farm. Let's go and take a look at your farm. The moment you said that to a farmer, the farmer would back off and say, I'm sorry. I think I've only done 20 hectares. All right? And so we would then disperse 20 hectares worth of fuel. We had a 70% saving in our first year on our fuel bill. I'm talking about millions of dollars. I'm not talking, I'm talking literally tens of millions of dollars, just from that intervention alone. But what it did, it got the message across that things were changing at Commando CBZ AgriYield. And that is what we wanted, the messaging effect. We could have opened other modules that were probably more important, but this one was to message and preempt. And so in the coming season, people were a lot more circumspect and thoughtful about coming to apply for a what? For a loan, because they knew we were now tracking them. All right? And so in the next season, we're getting GPS locations for every farm, and those who had 100 hectare offer letters, and if we saw that there was maybe application of inputs of 60% and above of what's in the offer letter, that would be a red flag. All right? Instantly, that would be a red flag. So we then built up the monitoring and evaluation teams that would go to each farm, whereby the red flags, the red nodes came up. And again, for the same amount of farmers, for the same hectarage, our bill just from dispersion of inputs came down by 40, 50. In fact, it ended up being about 60 to 70%. And the number of farmers it instantly came down. So by the time we had all the modules open, I think our numbers had gone from about 38,000 all the way down to 3,000. So 1/10 of the farmers that were originally on the program. without a corresponding decrease in actual production on the ground. All right. So that was quite phenomenal. This was a story that could not be public because it was it's very sensitive when you're going through the process. And this happened years ago. And now we can talk about it because the program has now been right-sized. People are excited about their cards, and there are all sorts of programs that are coming on. But let me tell you, it was the most challenging phase of my life. I can tell you that. All right, extremely challenging indeed. But what did help in that technology was an abstract. All right, you could just blame technology. It was not a Simbarashe issue, it was not a Panashe issue, it was not a Ben Law issue. These were all critical aspects of a process. I'm not even a developer, I don't know. All we do is come up with assumptions that can work to solve a particular problem. And then engage the smartest people in the room, and I truly believe it, which are yourselves, in order to implement the solving of that problem. So I could go on and tell you about a lot of externalities, a lot of things that were solved because of this. But in the interest of time, I'll leave it here and say, you are the solution to whatever we're going through in this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Simba. Please do have a sit with your cappuccino right there. I'm going to kindly ask for assistance to move the chair back to the stage. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to call upon Ashley, our next moderator for this session, and I do have a couple of questions I've been noting down. So I'll wait for after the what? Yes, please. Thank you. There you go, Ashley. He was asking that you hold his hand as well.
1, 2, 1, 2. Quick surprise. Can everyone just try to reach under the chair using the right hand? Just reach under your chair. Try to reach like the middle part using your right hand, please. Everyone. If you don't find anything, just use the left hand. Sorry, I just noticed that some of us were sleepy, so it was just a body stretch. I don't want to make the same mistake that the previous presenters did. So before we commence our intellectual odyssey, let us please acknowledge the eloquent duo who've been helping us navigate this beautiful event. Can you please give a resounding round of applause to Victor and Sharai, our masterful MCs, whose voices have been so harmonious, at times even the Dandem Tande Wi-Fi signal was stopping to listen. Let's give him a round of applause. Unless we act now, the 2030 agenda could become an epitaph for a world that might have been. Unless we act now, the 2030 agenda could become just an epitaph of what might have been. I'm quoting Madam President, who was also quoting the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres. But how do we act? When do we act? How do we know who's supposed to act? Is it the minister? Is it the PEMSEX? Is it the private sector? Is it the SOEs? Is it everyone coming together to act? Ladies and gentlemen, Honorable Minister, permanent secretaries, all protocols observed, connoisseurs of digital innovation and aficionados of industrial transformation, please join me in a rapturous round of applause as we usher in a panel of such prodigious talent that our collective IQs might just skyrocket through the ceiling today. First, we have Maria Chinongwe, Digital Enterprise Transformation Manager at Econet Wireless Zimbabwe, a digital disruptor whose ideas are so cutting edge, they've been known to give the internet a paper cut. Maria, please come on stage. Maria is an AI, data and digital transformation strategist who is actively involved in the formulation of strategies that support business, sustainability, and growth. Currently, she leads the implementation of effective AI, data and digital transformation strategies and business models that unlock immense value for Econet Wireless Zimbabwe and its customers. An experienced business leader, she has led innovation programs in the digital services, telecommunications, internet service providers, and financial service industries. Maria holds an MBA degree from Edinburgh Business School, Heriot-Watt University, and a Bachelor of Science honors degree in computer science from the University of Zimbabwe. She's a TOGAF enterprise architecture practitioner, Sparks practitioner, agile project management practitioner, public-private partnerships practitioner, as well as a holder of multiple technical certifications and qualifications. We needed the whole day to list all the certifications that she had, so we had to ask her to cut some of them out. Maria's current studies include certified Microsoft Azure AI engineer, AWS certified solutions architect, and data monetization strategies. Can you please give her a round of applause? Next, we welcome Edwin Ruziwe, an industry juggernaut whose groundbreaking strategies could make tectonic plates take notes. Edwin is an experienced digital transformation executive with an industrious career spanning more than 15 years in leadership capacities. A seasoned business executive, is the general manager for Gateway Stream, a subsidiary of Rainbow Tourism Group, RTG. Edwin drives business value through strategic IT leadership informed by a deep understanding of both technology and business. This is enabled by his vast specialties spanning across infrastructure management, digital transformation, marketing, project management, you name it. He's a holder of an honors degree in computer science from the Belgium campus IT University and an MBA with the University of Suffolk in England. Joining them as well will be Simba, our command agriculture person, a maestro of financing whose vision is so clear they can see into the next decade. I won't go over Simba's bios, we've already gone through it. We also have Percy. Percy is the group ICT manager for Zimplats, an oracle of optimization whose foresight is rumored to have time travelers asking for directions. Can you please give a round of applause for Percy? He is a chartered IT professional, an ethical hacker, a highly accomplished and extensively experienced business executive, specializing in engineering, information systems, strategy, and security. Percy has made significant contributions to the field of IT throughout his career, having presented papers on the roles of ICT to global audiences in the fields of mining and LIMS. Percy's career has been mostly in high-level leadership. Has been marked by his ability to develop innovative solutions that address complex business challenges. He has a deep understanding of various programming languages, software development methodologies, and system architectures, allowing him to design and implement robust and scalable systems. He holds an MBA, a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science, and he is also a keen rugby player. He has played up to national level representing the Sables. Percy is also a trained life coach, golfer, and aviator. Last but not least, Ashley, the moderator extraordinaire, whose razor-sharp wit is so keen, it's been classified as a cyber security threat. With a mind quicker than a click-through and insights deeper than the dark web, Ashley stands ready to navigate us through the complexities of our topics today. Together, we form an ensemble so astoundingly adept at adaptation, Darren himself would have been taking notes. So without further ado, we're going to delve into the digital depths with our magnificent panel and get this going. Do I have my seat? Can I please have a round of applause as I go sit? Thank you. Right. Technology and industry and value addition. What do we mean by this? Before we talk about the future, everyone else has been talking about the future and AI and virtual reality and budgets. But I don't think we can talk about the future before we understand our current landscape. We know where we want to go, but where are we now? So I'm going to ask some of our panelists to at least, in under a minute, please explain about what you understand, the current ICT landscape in your specific sector. We've got mining, PSC, we've got hospitality, Edwin, we've got Maria, connectivity, Ethernet, and then obviously Mr. Command Agriculture. I think Maria will start. Just briefly explain where you think we are in terms of IT and the current landscape before we talk about where we want to go in under a minute.
Thank you, Chair. Our current landscape is characterized by a highly VUCA environment. It's volatile, it's uncertain, it's complex, it's ambiguous. And recently an H has been added to the VUCA acronym, and H stands for hostile. So this gives a picture of the environment in which we are operating in. And this environment has been driven in this direction because of ever-changing customer requirements, customer pain points, customer needs. And these customers are both individual and the enterprise customers, be it small to medium enterprises, be it large enterprises that we popularly call the corporates. So these challenges that have presented themselves in this environment have rendered business models that were previously viable impracticable. Impracticable is the opposite of viable. So this is the environment, Mr. Chair, that we are operating in, and it actually requires that we come up with innovative solutions that are driven by data and AI in order to be correctly or to increase our competitive advantage in this environment. So in under a minute, I hope I did the best.
We'll try. Can you move on to Edwin? Again, under a minute. Please be specific to your sector.
Thank you, Chair. Just briefly to just reiterate in the current landscape. So I will be more into the the hospitality industry, which I also specialize in. But obviously, when you look at Zimbabwe's current landscape in terms of the digital quest in terms of transforming most of the business using technology. So we look at situations where we have got a lot of e-commerce companies popping up. You look the likes of our company, Gateway Stream, where we are also, a platform to go, mainly just to make sure that, we can give a one-stop shop to people. At the same time, we also look at the likes of your Fresh in a Box. We look at the likes of mobile apps. But obviously, we are looking at infrastructure. And to my earlier point and question when I was asking about how far are we prepared from an infrastructure perspective in terms of hosting these very nice, innovative ideas that we all wish to have, which is now also a culmination of different solutions that are being given by your Tel One, your Econet, and all these other players that can actually enhance. But we are saying, you look at the traditional business, where we are saying, your Pick and Pays, your OKs, they exist and people can access those particular shops, mainly because we have got roads that leads to those shops. But when you look in the digital landscape, we're also saying, do we have the same accessibility in terms of, our access to e-commerce? Then we look at certain things that, impediment, which the likes of data costs, that has been also a hot topic. So we are looking at the current landscape of, e-commerce, digital transformation, where we are saying there are certain areas that needs improvement, which we also aiming, with our, the Vision 2030 that has been, championing by many industry players. That's all.
Clearly, the topic of time is a topic which was grossly misunderstood by most of our panelists, but I'll hand over to PSC to see, if he has mastered not only tech, but also time management. Over to you, Mr. PSC.
I think the characteristic of our current environment is fast-paced change. If you look back, change was gradual. We could get some time to develop, test systems. But now we've got a business that's running, which we must plug tech into it and solve problems that are also changing at the same time. So that's the characteristics, and that's it's also exciting but also challenging. So you've got a global change, you've got changes in tech itself, and the business requirements changing. And all of that characterizes what tech people need to do. You cannot go and do tech, but you must do tech at a fast rate because tech is changing and the business requirements are changing. So we've been talking, most of the people we're talking about, we need to do something about it. The minister was saying that now we need to work 24 hours. There's no time to rest because things are changing as fast paced. So that is currently what we are facing.
Thank you very much, Percy. Mr. Simba, would you want to contribute as well? I know you gave a disclaimer that you're not an ICT person, but you want to talk about the current landscape?
Sure. I would say I would use the word convergence. And when I say convergence, in the primary agriculture or in the food space, you have real-time impact of an event that happens or a tail event, or call it a Six Sigma event or a tail event that happens in another part of the world affecting the price of water, the price of food that you're paying today. So the bombing of a bridge in Ukraine has a correlation to the price of food today. And the speed at which you will feel that is close to real time because the price of corn, maize, wheat will increase on the Chicago Board of Exchange or wheat coming from the Balkans instantly, and the client or the customer or the producer will pass on that cost to you immediately, all right? So the algorithms that we've now created are reacting real time. So now, if we are decision makers, we can't have the traditional decision-making processes that take a year or 6 months in order to respond to that. We've got to be just as responsive because it's those who respond quickly and accurately that are going to survive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Apparently, this panel is so insightful that we need to give you guys a bit of time to absorb what has been said so far. And at this point, I'm just going to let the MCs take over for a bit as you guys digest what we've given you so far.
Thank you very much, Ashley. Ladies and gentlemen, just for a couple of seconds, I'm just going to ask that you get down the stage, but we'll be calling you back, so please do not go anywhere. We have a lot of questions in store for you guys. We just want to carry out something very big for everyone to actually witness this afternoon. Thank you very much. And Ashley, I didn't know you were serious when you said last night you'd cover for me when if I don't wake up for the MC job, eh?
Ladies and gentlemen, as we promised you, there's going to be something special. So right now I'm going to call Madam President and Viola to come to the front and lead us to the next point.
Thank you very much, Director of Ceremonies. And a very good afternoon once again to everyone. Are we happy? Thank you, thank you. This is an ICT event, and our faces should show that dynamism. We have at this moment a very, very important step, and what is enshrined in that step is what we've been talking about and preaching about, if I may use that word, since morning. The collaboration between government and the private sector. And we thought that at this moment we should all witness that as the government of Zimbabwe enters into a memorandum of understanding, which we usually call MOU, with the Computer Society of Zimbabwe. Now, when we say Computer Society of Zimbabwe, each one of us here, that means each one of us here has entered into a memorandum of understanding with the government of Zimbabwe. And thank you for talking about Pumvudza, because as government of Zimbabwe, we are the leaders in Pumvudza. Okay. So we are very, very happy. So when after this conference, the question that you should ask yourself is, what am I doing to make sure that this nation, this beloved nation of Zimbabwe, develops, particularly in the digital space? And I'm sure for our visitors, maybe this is something to take a cue from. That's what we do in Zimbabwe. We collaborate, we corroborate, and we work together. At this moment, may I, let me give you a minute. Yes, yes. At this moment, may I invite PS Matekaire. May I also invite our Honorable Minister of ICT, Postal and Courier Services to take a seat at the front. The President of the Computer Society of Zimbabwe on our behalf. I think you need to be seated as you sign, the Minister and the President. Yes. We'll flank them. The PS, okay. Okay. You know, I was running away from a very great honor. I'm supposed to be the signatory to this from an operational level. So let me hand over the mic to the President. And I'm so happy that the Honorable Minister is here, and will make sure that, you know, she pushes me to implement what is contained in that MOU. Over to you, President.
Thank you very much, PS. On our behalf, Viola Dondo, our Executive Director, will sign on our behalf because she's our full-time employee. We will just witness.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much. Congratulations, Computer Society of Zimbabwe. Like I said, that this is the beginning of a journey, and the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a step. And this is what we need to do now. Let's go on. You have got our support, and I'm sure you all concur that His Excellency, our President, Dr. Edi Mnangagwa, is unapologetic when it comes to us digitalizing everything that we do. Be it on all the government processes, is very clear. That's why you see, even in the office of the president, there's an e-government unit. That speaks a lot. And I was actually saying to the PS that we have, the two of them, I say to them, do you know that right now you've been given a task, and this task needs you to prove that you are also capable as individuals. So for all of you, team, we work as a team. And all I can say is we need you, we need your input, we need your expertise, because that is how we can build Zimbabwe to be the best that we want. Indeed, thank you very much and congratulations. Before we leave, I know we're going to be leaving in a few minutes, but I had asked a question in the morning, which I said, can you please give me a comparison of our tariffs? I was quite clear on that. And may you please beam the tariffs that Portras published to us. Like I said, that this is coming from Portras. We need to have this conversation because you are the techno people. And we need to have this so that at least we know, we make informed decisions. We can then bring about the policy that we expect. And it's quite important that we speak about this. I'm going to invite the representative from Portras. They published this, maybe because I'd not spoken about it, that's why probably it wasn't. But I'm saying this came out in all the papers. I'm sure you could have seen it. And I'm sure on their website it's actually there. So this is what they said. Madam, please come through, maybe unpack this, and then we just have a brief conversation. I'm sure we'll just conclude on my, especially from my side. Please come through.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Minister, for giving me this opportunity to at least try to explain the tariff or the current tariff. I just wanted to say I have no choice but to do this, despite the fact that the mandate that I got from the Director General yesterday was to speak on data protection, Honorable Minister. But because you're a principal and I have your green light to do this, I will proceed and try and explain the tariff. I think if there has been a different view, probably that you have received over the discussion during the afternoon, it would also be fair to get to understand the basis of that different view. Because as Portras, when we come up with the tariff, we use what is called the Telecommunications Pricing Index. Different countries use different models in terms of how they come up with the costing structure. And as a country, looking at the VUCA that my colleague was actually talking about, it even makes more sense on the aspect of the hostile part, because you increase the tariffs, having looked at the cost structure, then there is hostility and people coming up with different versions and positions about the whole issue. It becomes an issue of quantum computing, others having a superposition on a particular issue, not the zeros and the ones, and they have their stance on that issue. So I just wanted to say that from the analysis that we did using the Telecommunications Pricing Index, because the framework is critical in terms of what you are using. And the framework is also dependent on the macroeconomic environment that you are operating in as an internet service provider or as a telecommunications operator. And if we don't appreciate the environment within which we are operating and within which we are functioning as a society, then there is a problem. We also even talk about the GNI per capita. What is our gross net income per month as a society, which is also taken into account when doing this whole telecommunication pricing index. So when you look at the GNI for an average Zimbabwean, it's maybe $250 or $300 at most, $200. And then when you look at the fact that currently we are saying 11% of the income of every Zimbabwean is going towards
purchasing telecommunication services. And when you remove 10% from 250, it is a lot of money for you because of the macroeconomic environment that we are operating under. And the framework that we are using is not just being used in Zimbabwe. It's something that is adopted. We are a member of the International Telecommunications Union, and these frameworks are developed and then applied by different member states looking at their particular context. So I just want you to beam the tariffs. I know there has been a debate. Even the last 2 weeks, we were here also with ISACA. They couldn't agree that at that time we were at $3, while the highest was almost at about $9 within our region. So, Honorable Minister, I'm actually responding to this issue with not being privy to the other detail or data that you got in terms of the framework that they used. Because if we speak from the same framework, if they are saying the telecommunication pricing index that we used is wrong, we did insert wrong algorithms, then that's a different issue. But the index that we used, which is a framework that we are adopting as part of the international community, this is what we came up with. And if you can see from the countries that are there, the operator that is there, how much is costing per voice, per SMS, and per data per megabit. You look at Botswana, which is currently, from the analysis there, is about $7.25 per megabyte in terms of data, because I think the issue is the issue of data and not really the voice tariffs. And then when you look at the next country, it is actually Lesotho. Yeah, Lesotho is the second expensive within our region. I mean, but you look at the demographics, you also look at the macroeconomic situation. Then followed by Lesotho, which is also at $6.57. And when you look at ours in terms of Zimbabwe, the issue really is that we are at almost about $3.50 something in terms of the data per megabyte that we are actually charging. I think the statistics there, there was a mistake there, an error there, because it's about $3 something if from the last analysis that was done. So when you look at it from the telecommunications pricing index there, the average at the regional level is actually $4.51, and we are below the regional average in terms of the data cost. So if there is a different view, they can come up with their own table and actually indicate the framework that they have used and indicate the areas where they think this is not correct and that Potras is actually not aligned when it comes to this whole issue. So when you look at different websites, they've been saying a lot of things about Zimbabwe's data being about $40, isn't it? We have had a lot of people discussing all these issues. But the truth of the matter, using this particular framework, this is actually what we have, and our data remains the least expensive within the SADC region, or at least from the 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 countries that we actually looked at. So I don't know, Honorable Minister, whether that assists, but it is the framework that before we used to use a different model, which was the long-run incremental model. But because of the macroeconomic situation, things changed. We couldn't insist on that particular model, which is why we moved on to the telecommunications pricing index. So if there is a different framework from the room that you think maybe can be explored, I think the minister is actually open to that, and Potras is actually open to that, without, of course, killing the sector in our own hands, because we are the people who are operating within this sector, and we are the regulator, and playing that balancing act of satisfying the needs of the consumer as well as satisfying the needs of the service provider so that they remain sustainable is not an easy one. And we can all come together and say, let's use this particular framework which makes sense or which you think will achieve better results. But as far as we are concerned, from the international representation that we are participating as Zimbabwe representing the government, and the framework which we agreed on to say in the VUCA environment, this is the framework that would assist us to come up with the tariffs. And when you look at the tariffs themselves, they are actually then paid in RTGS. ZWL, yes. So when you use ZWL, we also forget the fact that these service providers need to pay for the software. And we all know software is not actually manufactured in Zimbabwe. They have to pay this software in US dollars. And then they have to convert again the ZWL that we are using to US dollars and be able to meet those other requirements that they need to meet in US dollars. And the infrastructure in terms of replacement, as well as even rolling out, deploying new infrastructure, that all requires foreign currency. And we are paying our data in ZWL. So those are things that we really need to look at, and also look at the pocket of the Zimbabwean. That are they in a position to pay this particular amount of money? And if you noticed, from June to about September, if not October, there were no tariff increases despite the changes in the macroeconomic environment, which actually affected even the profits, not just the profits, but the operating environment for the telecommunication service providers themselves, because they lost almost 100% in terms of value with looking at the macroeconomic. If we want to be honest to ourselves, we need to look at the macroeconomic environment, look at the foreign currency obligations that they have, look at the pocket of the Zimbabwean, and we use the telecommunication pricing index to come up with this. And from that framework, we are still the least, and we maintain that position as Potras. Unless there's a different view, they can come and beam the results of their findings, tell us the framework that they have used, and then we are open. We can take it from there. Thank you, Honorable Minister, for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, ma'am. So this is what Potras had to present to us. Any comments? Just one or two. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I just wanted to find out, I understand there's been some work that was put in this landscape, especially to do with international connectivity, where Bandwidth Cloud Service, BCS, is actually done fiber that comes from from Bedbridge all the way to VicForce. And the expectation was that this would actually reduce the bandwidth price. And I'm made to believe that phase one was completed. So has there been any movement in pricing of bandwidth, especially after that development? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Yes. Yes, President. Past President. We say the term doesn't go anywhere. All right, yes.
For me, it is a comment, but it's also, I think, maybe we need to look at the issue in a different light. My view is that, I don't know whether Potras, maybe they've done it already. Is there been any consideration in terms of having a local data tariff? For me, what having a local data tariff does is it reduces the cost for local traffic. It also encourages local developers to develop systems that people can use locally. So for me, I think it serves two things. It helps reduce the cost for local traffic. If I'm sending an email to my work office and I'm connecting to my email server in the office, I'm charged an international tariff. It's the same as getting my Gmail. And I'm saying, well, should that really be the case? Are we not able to say, let's have this, a local tariff, that if I'm checking my email locally, even when you have your .gov email addresses come up, that tariff also applies to your government officials, because they are now talking to their email servers locally, and it reduces the burden of cost for everybody. So that's really where my thinking is more. But I don't know whether they've done it or not. Maybe they've already done.
Thank you. I wanted to look into the view that has been mentioned in terms of comparing it to the average salary that somebody gets in Zimbabwe, whereby maybe we, like the electricity company does, we know that they've got a certain range of the cost of electricity, which they think maybe they've worked upon that an average household maybe of 5 would consume. Then when we have that figure, we also want to say, what do we think is the average consumption of data for each individual? Then we convert it to the amount that portals have used to see if then it equates, if we multiply it to the income that somebody gets. And if it goes above the percentage that we think, it also means to say the use of data is going to reduce. And if we have got reduced use of data, that means to say even if we're talking about artificial intelligence and so forth, then we won't be able to gain those information. Thank you.
Thank you. Portras will respond to that. Thank you very much. I'll start with Dr. Matekairi. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I'm going to look at this from a two-pronged approach. One of the things that we are working on is if you look at the government of the UK, for example, I'm just citing to give a case in point. They largely communicate through what I would call an intranet system. That intranet system largely brings down the cost of communicating across MDAs. And we're thinking of adopting a similar approach in terms of government communications. Another approach that we're also trying to look at, and we'll be working with my colleagues, and I think you are also invited to participate in that, and Potras, who is our regulator, is the VoIP system to be adopted across MDAs. And if it is adopted across MDAs, I'm not trying to run away from punishing Tel One or Net One, because we know the monies that we pay at the end of each month, if we invest that into our VoIP, it will largely give benefit to government and improve government communications. And in terms of coming up with locally based tariff system, I think it's an engagement we need to involve our regulator, Potras, that this should be part of their homework, and we are going to engage them and ensure that we weigh all these different possibilities. I think it's one of the challenges I put yesterday when I said we want to understand what are the major cost drivers for our telecom businesses. And if we understand those pain points, then we engage government to then say, what kind of policy initiatives can government come up with in order to ameliorate that kind of pain that you have, but without compromising on service delivery. I know when Potras was presenting, she indicated the pains that telecoms companies were having as a result of not increasing tariffs for quite some time. But I could equally then say, is this what led to the drop in the quality of service that we were getting? Or is it a way of forcing government to comply with certain agreements, poor quality calls, drop in service? Is that a way really to negotiate, or we can still come back and negotiate with government? I submit.
Thank you, PS.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Maybe I should also stand. BCS is a private company. They were licensed by Potras. They are doing business in Zimbabwe. And it is Potras who determine the level of tariff or the range that these sector players must be able to charge for their services. So it wouldn't be proper for us to say, because BCS has come on board, therefore the tariffs should actually go down. There are a number of other very important inputs. The TPI that she talked about. You look at other factors, for instance, even the fuel. You look at the people that are involved in providing the service. They all the operating expenses, they all form part of the equation. From a policy perspective, we do take note that, maybe the data would say it's not expensive, but it's expensive relative to our incomes. And I think that qualification must be important. And the discussion that I have had with the Machiwas who are here is, what is it that we can do looking at the salary levels, the income levels rather, for our people. But in essence, as presented, we still find that our data is very, very low, or very, very low priced compared to the region. I think what Tsitsi was trying to explain to you is that our data is pegged in ZWL. What you buy for using USD is a discounted, right? Discounted rate, just to make sure that the telcos remain afloat and they can collect something to plow into the infrastructure requirements, upgrades requirements, software requirements for their systems. So the two are completely not related. Because once you say 13 cents and you compare with what you find the exchange rate at an astronomical 32 something. So those two are not to be compared. The minister right now is engaged with authorities like Ministry of Finance, RBZ, and other authorities to try and see if we can align the tariffs with what is happening at ZESA, with what is happening at Zinara, but also taking into consideration the levels of income of our people. So this is where we are, and I thought we are busy right now. This is why we are working 24 hours. We think very soon we should have a solution to this. Thank you very much. Maybe somebody talked about local data traffic. I think, again, this is an issue for consideration, which can be achieved once we have our own internet exchange points, right? Which we don't have, and I'm glad that everyone here is on board. So what do we do for us to establish our own internet exchange points so that our data doesn't have to go via Europe? I'm sending you an email as I'm sitting here, but it must go via Europe in order to come back to you. So that is actually an anomaly. We are all part of the solution. So I think let's think around that and establish our own infrastructure, which will be able, again, in the final end, lower the price of data. Thank you very much.
Thank you once again, Honorable Minister, and thank you, PS. I'm in a very hot seat this afternoon, but I just wanted to say I appreciate the comments which have been asked to respond to about looking at whether we can't follow the format that ZESA uses to look at probably, I was looking at it from a two-dimensional perspective, domestic versus corporate. I was also looking at it from the perspective that you're saying that we could look at whether we can have emails that are sent or business done within our own country have a different tariff than when you are then operating within the context of outside Zimbabwe. But I just wanted to respond to that aspect and say we need to remember that we are not an island. And this whole thing we are talking about ICTs is global. And when you look at the cost, whether you are a computer company or whether you are an internet service provider, they don't look at the fact that you are from Zimbabwe and therefore the price has to be cheaper. In terms of the solutions that you need to operate your business, you are looked at as one of the global competitors. So if we then say a tariff is to look at a very narrow approach, which is just specific to our own nation, when we know that the world is globalized, I don't know whether that would really work, because the solutions that the internet service providers are buying, they are buying on the global market. And the solutions even that they are producing, they're selling on the global market. So these are some of the issues that we really need to think about and talk about. And as Potras, like our Honorable Minister in the PS, we are open to further discussions on this issue. And if there are gurus, I mean, somebody said the people in here are actually the solution providers to the situation that we're facing as a nation. So if there's somebody with a better approach, we are actually prepared to discuss with them. But at the moment, looking at the VUCA environment and looking at the framework that we used, this was the best possible tariff that could be arrived at. Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much. And I think there was a question which was asked on the local internet exchange. Yes, Potras is working on it together with a company from the UAE. I'm sure we're going to give a response to that so that at least we can have a .gov .zw domain very soon. Thank you very much. I'm sorry for taking your time. I thought it was important. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable. Wow. Did you see what just happened? The Minister of ICT and CSZ signing a memorandum. Now it means we are moving to the next step. Because what's important in every key aspect of life is having to have all the set recommendations in place. Now they're in place. So now it's up to each and every one of us in this room. Like you heard from every panel that was here in the front, they keep on saying the door is opened. The door is open for each and every one of us. So it's now up to us to say, yes, we are willing to engage the government so that we can come up with a plan. So, Honorable, we are very grateful. And for those who did not manage to ask honorable questions and you have still few you want to talk to her, I'm not sure how many saw this, if you saw this flyer. She's going to be having a breakfast, digital transformation and cybersecurity at Rainbow Towers Hotel. Is it Bulawayo or is it Harare? It's in Harare. So for those who still feel or who still want to talk to her, she's going to be hosting a breakfast DSHC on the 9th of November. For payments, in cash you see me, but for transfers, you can use the details available. At this junction of time, would want to stand up?
Yes, I think we're now going to allow the Honorable Minister to just take a leave.
Yes.
Yes, and then the rest of us, can we stand up and remain in the room?
DJ, may I have that song of mine? A round of applause to all of us. We may take our seats. Thank you. Do we have you guys coming back?
Oh, yes. Apparently, there's this young man. Since yesterday, he's been threatening to take my place as MC. And now that he has gotten an opportunity to be a moderator, I see him flaunting these big words and all that.
So we pampatulately, inaugurally, vigorously welcome him back on stage, huh?
Yes, we do. Ashley and team, please do come back on stage. Ashley and the panel, we kindly invite you back. Oh, yes.
Thank you very much, Sarai, for allowing me to bring back the veritable titans of technology as we continue our discussion on industry, value addition, and technology. I think we're missing one microphone. So as we continue with the conversation, we've heard the phrase or the hashtag Vision 2030, NDS1, being thrown around a lot. Zimbabwe upper middle economy by 2030, which I think is about 6 years from now. I want each of our industry experts to briefly explain where they and their sectors exactly fit in this equation, starting with Mr. Percy. Obviously you're coming from a dual vantage point, being in IT and also being in mining, which is, I think, one of the greatest contributors to our GDP. Where do you think innovations and disruptions in mining fit when you're talking about Vision 2030 and Zim being an upper middle economy by 2030?
There's no alternative to it. The industry is being disrupted in a big way. The businesses are disrupted in a big way. But then there's also social movements in terms of, are you mining? If you are mining or doing any business, is it in a socially acceptable manner? And all of those are being monitored. And anything that you do has got an immediate impact. Before, there was an issue where if something happened, you had a chance to investigate it, look at what's happening. But currently, you are being judged before even yourself knows what happened because of the proliferation of your social media and how fast data is moving. But from a disruption perspective, things are changing so fast that you cannot lag behind. So it's something that you need to keep on top of the situation. Your communications, what you used to use is changing as well. So if you had run wires before as your communication, and then now we had your Wi-Fi communication, and now we're talking satellite communication. All those are things that you need to embrace as you go. But the business on every day needs to perform, and you also need to embrace that as you go.
Thank you very much. Over to you, Edwin. How do you see digital transformations from your experience at Gateway, innovations in the tourism and hospitality sector? Where do you see yourself fitting in the national vision and the national strategy and your contributions?
Thank you, Ashley. Just so that at least there is clarity. So Gateway Stream, it's an innovation from the Rainbow Tourism Group. So we are a subsidiary of one of the largest hotel group in the country. So obviously as an innovation, we are looking at the growth of e-commerce and the way people are now booking for holidays, for accommodation online, which is one of the key things that have been embraced by everyone, where the likes of Booking.com, the likes of Airbnb, and we are saying also in the hospitality industry, the way we want to grow is also looking at the vision that has been put in place, as we have seen that in the NDS, some of the things that they are also aspiring to do, where they are looking at what is the current rate of mobile internet penetration. But at the same time, we're also looking at what are these other innovations that are being done in the hospitality industry to make sure that people have got access to information about destinations that they want to go. And at the same time, people also have got the ability to be able to book without having to have that physical connection or through a phone call. And we have seen that, Zimbabwe has embraced e-commerce or the online, which has been also accelerated by the COVID era. But to that effect, we look at how people are listing their stuff on WhatsApp, where most of the ladies are buying their stuff on the WhatsApp businesses. There is that trust. So as a country, we are ready for e-commerce, but there are certain things that we have seen, which we already talk about, which is the data part, where people are now choosing to trade more often on the WhatsApp platforms, whereas we are busy building these Rolls-Royce mobile apps and websites where obviously not everyone can be able to afford that, but we are trying to bring convenience to the people. But so that's why you are saying, is the country ready for e-commerce? Yes, it is, but are all these other things or the wheels ready also to support the growth, which is one of the things that we say, I don't think we are there yet, as much as we've got plans in place, but we really need to move faster to make sure that we also support the growth and the way things are also going in terms of the data and accessibility to information. That's how I can submit.
You mentioned a very controversial topic, which at least was clearly addressed by the madam from Potras, how the cost of connectivity is influencing the uptake of technology and technology adoption. But I think that was addressed, and I think we just have to move on, because we are definitely offering the lowest tariffs in the region. I think the problem is we can't afford. So that's another problem that we then have to talk about. We can't afford. So what's next, right? But we'll get back to that. Let's move over to the madam from Econet, which I think is one of the most talked about companies when we're talking about affordability issues. Madam Maria, you guys are the backbone. We've got mining, we've got tourism, we've got agriculture, and you are standing there, as a strongman, holding all of us. So if you guys decide to switch us off, then we can't operate, we can't do anything. Please also just briefly explain your role, again, in the broader context of things, talking about the Vision 2030.
All right, thank you, Ashley. So as we look at Vision 2030, it is looking at transforming our country into a middle economy, kind of economy. So if we look at that, as a digital services provider, we are coming through to support all the sectors that are at play in our economy. We are coming through to support, be it the agriculture sector, be it the finance and banking sector, be it the mining sector, or MSMEs that are at play in the various sectors in our economy, even the telcos sector. We are coming through to be an enabler by providing solutions that are data-driven so that all these sectors can make informed decisions. And just to bring context into what I've said, if you look at a research that was conducted, it actually showed that of the Fortune 500 companies that were listed in the year 2000, 2/3 of them are not in existence anymore. And the same report also projected that by the year 2040, 80% of the companies that are currently appearing on the Fortune 500 list of companies will be non-existent. And just to bring it closer to our continent, if we look at Africa, South Africa, the neighboring country, 800 companies in South Africa actually closed down in the year 2023, which is the year we are currently under. And this report looked at this, or they analyzed these statistics from the beginning of 2023 to where we are now. And the same report also shows that despite all these companies facing challenges, their business models being rendered impracticable in this VUCA environment, there are 5 companies that have actually survived and remained sustainable in this VUCA environment. So if we look at these 5 companies, we are looking at the likes of Meta, we are looking at Alphabet, we are looking at Amazon. They have remained sustainable in this VUCA environment. In fact, they've actually quintupled their exponential growth 5 times in this environment. And research has shown that they managed to do this through leveraging on data and AI. So as a digital services company, we are saying to all the sectors at play in the Zimbabwean economy, we are here to support you. We are here to develop solutions that will help you realize more value in your operations. We are coming to provide solutions that will ensure that your business models remain viable, no matter how drastic the changes are in the business environment. And we can do this through leveraging on data. Data will be able to give us actionable insights, guided insights that will help you target the right customer at the right time and targeting the right market segments. So I think this is where we find ourselves. And as a telecommunications company as well, we have managed to gather data about over 88% of the population of Zimbabwe. So that means we are able to partner with companies in order to ensure that we give you the insights about your customers. What are their preferences? What are their usage patterns? What products and services can you develop that are targeted at them? And we call this hyper-personalization, where you don't just develop and launch a product or service onto the market, but you actually launch the right product to the right segment of one. We are now drilling to the segment of one so that you make each and every customer derive value out of your solutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Maria. I see what you did there. You said companies are closing down. And if Zimbabwean companies don't want to close, they should partner with Econet. I think in those 15,000 words, that's what you're trying to say. We're going to lose our jobs and you're going to close down if you don't partner with Econet.
In a nutshell, I'm saying if we want to be named, if your organization wants to be named against the likes of Amazon, Alphabet, Meta, then partner with a solution provider who is able to leverage on data to give you the actionable insights.
Thank you very much. Those who still want to survive, please see Madam Maria outside the door. Otherwise, you're not going to make it for CSZ next year because your companies will have closed down. Moving over to you, Mr. Simba. Given CBZ's agro-yield significant contribution to the agricultural sector and obviously financing, growing up, we used to hear the term that Zimbabwe is the bread basket of Zimbabwe. I'm not too sure if we're still the basket, or we're now a cup or a teaspoon. But my question to you is, where do you think you coming with, obviously, agro-yield and many other players who are in the same field with you fit into getting us back to the prime position that we were at?
Thank you for that. No, thank you for that. We also want to become a Meta or an Amazon. And it's interesting because I've got a friend who is running Amazon's toy section for China. And they move about 2.8 billion toys a year. And in China, we value African products. And if you just had a section in Amazon, China, for African products, everyone thinks that they are pure. So people would buy them at 100% premium simply because it comes from Africa. So it's an opportunity that we've not explored as a continent. But getting back to my section, I think CBZ Agro Yield is going to play an influential part in restoring Zimbabwe's status. And I mean this in that what we have seen at CBZ, because of the data in terms of the financial inflows into the country, in terms of what we see that a lot of our inflows are coming from the diaspora. And there is no sector that can get us to Vision 2030 faster than agriculture. All the economists will tell you that agriculture has got the largest or the most significant multiplier effect on incomes and growth in terms of what we know, in terms of economic growth. So a dollar invested in agriculture has got a return profile which is pretty significant when you look at the downstream industries that can be created. And Zimbabwe is an agro-centric ecosystem and economy. When agriculture fires, everything else fires. So that said, financing becomes key because you need billions of dollars in order to finance agriculture. At one point, we're deploying, just as AgriYield alone, $250 to $300 million a year into the programs to just finance cereals alone. Now, that money needs to come from somewhere, and we cannot rely on that money coming from fiscus. So a good source of funding for us is actually the diaspora. And if you look at the latest statistics for Africa as a whole, you find that we're receiving about $95 billion a year into Africa from remittance flows, right? That's $95 billion a year. And that is from 160 million Africans who are in the diaspora. Now, FDI is about $30 billion a year into Africa. So it's a fraction of what we receive from our own people. Now, these are the formal flows. So your Western Union and so forth. Now, if you look at the informal channels of funding coming in, those tend to be 2x or 3x of the formal channels. So this number you can multiply 2 to 3 times over. So now, what do we do to ensure that the money coming from abroad comes into our pockets and is invested in the key areas? That is where technology comes in, data latency, all these apps and all these conduits where high transactional costs are impeding the flow of funds into Africa. And that's a function of regulatory constraints, AML, KYC, all these other constraints back in the West, and also our own issues where we actually make it difficult to be recipient of funds into our local banking system. You can just look at our switches. Our switches are not allowing everyone to integrate, all right? The cost of a switch. And we embed all these costs, and that is a burden and an inhibitor of funding coming in. So technology is going to play a key role into this. And we've been doing a lot of research into the diaspora recently, and we're finding that the diaspora wants to deploy funds into a specific asset. They want something tangible that they can invest into. They even want something tangible that they can deploy money as a token or as a gift or as part of philanthropy. And we've noticed that it's not the wealthy diaspora, but actually the low-income diaspora that are the biggest deployers of philanthropy back home, all right? So it's not the wealthy people, and it's interesting, and they tend to be the what? The recipient, or they tend to be charged the most per transaction because they don't have the scalable funding or money to deploy. So that is a very, very big call to us to actually come up with conduits that are cost-effective for our diaspora. So as we look at that, we see that at the moment, I'm just going to give you an example of PayPal. PayPal in 2021 moved $19.6 billion to NGOs. Okay, so they're a payment gateway, and you pay what you want on PayPal. But $19.6 billion went into NGOs just through similar conduits like your GoFundMe pages, and that was a 10% increase from the previous year. But this funding is not coming into Africa, right? It's going elsewhere, simply because we don't have scalable and trusted conduits to be able to deploy capital in here. So I think it's a challenge to us to see how we remove cash transit, or CITs, cash in transit, which are aeroplanes and buses at the moment, into the formal channels. And it's a function of what we do in the technology space. And I think for the most part, when we do our analysis and we ask the people in the diaspora where they want to most deploy into, they'll tell you housing and agriculture. Those are the two biggest things that they want to deploy into. And we can play a role in that.
Thank you very much, Simba. That was very insightful. Unfortunately, because of time, we have to quickly round this up. And I don't think we can round it up before we discuss the issue of the challenges. Because obviously, we're all agreeing on a common position. Innovate or die. Disrupt, transform, and thrive. PSE, I'm going to give this over to you to just quickly round it up for us. What are the major challenges that are hindering or slowing down the adoption of the much needed innovations or the much needed disruptions? Is it the government which is the problem? Is it poachers? Who is the problem? Let's identify them and also mention what you think is a solution or other solutions to the uptake of tech.
Yeah, the major problem is actually identifying the problem. So we'll analyze and analyze to no end if we don't know what the problem is. If I just check your memory back to our agriculture guy, when they discovered what the problem was, finding a solution for that was easy. And where to find it is also not a problem. So most of the things we need to do is to say, what exactly is the problem? So generally we take people, we need to find a way to discover what the actual business problem is. Applying tech into that is usually not the biggest of the problems. Internally, I can assure you that we have most of the solutions we want. We can work with the people that we work with. Look, I've traveled the globe, and half the time I've discovered that your Zim solution is superior to what is out there and what we think it happens. So usually you do that, you walk around and discover that what we can achieve is better than what all the other guys are trying to do. Because what they usually do is to come to you, ask you what your problem is, spend hours and money for you explaining to them what your problem is and what you think the solution is, and then they give you that solution and charge you. So I think for us, that is the major problem. The problem is, let's find the problem, and what I have in my office is a tick, and then just do it. Unless you start, you will not get the solution done.
So we've got to start. We've got to innovate. I can see the side eye that I'm being given by the convener, but I think I'm going to allow if there is one burning question or contribution that any of you guys might want to ask to these industry captains before they leave the stage. Okay, you already have a mic, so yeah, I think in the interest of time, I'll just I'll let you quickly ask.
Thank you so much, Chair. For me, like I said earlier on when I was presenting, to say, just consider me as a friend of the association and also share some insights from where I sit. You know, there are two issues which I just wanted to buttress what my dear sister Maria talked about there, in as much as we are thinking that she's scaring up people, but these are realities. One, as Zimbabwe, we are a member of what we call the Africa Public Procurement Network, and I'm speaking mainly focused on the government side of things. But this has got a bearing on the industry itself, and like in other industries. In 2 weeks' time, we will be in West Africa to discuss how, as public procurement regulators, how are we going to then facilitate trade between regional or inter-Africa trade. And in that regard, we are discussing about harmonizing our laws so that our entrepreneurs from our regions can then have businesses across. So we seem to have, of course, discord because the other industries, like I was speaking to the built-up industries last week, I was here in Vic Falls for that. I I was discouraging them from having the protectionist approach because it then put some barriers to that effect. But more specifically to your industry colleagues, I don't know where to put the pulse on, but the feedback which I get, especially from the constituencies, the procuring entities which I represent, there are about 349 of them, and we all know government being the biggest spender, almost 68 to 72% of it being of the budget getting to goods and services. I know people, when people talking of the government budget, they only think about government ministries and departments, but from a regulator point of view, we also regulate all the SOEs, all the 92 local authorities, the commissions, and some of the SOEs are in the mining sector and commercial, purely commercial. And there's this sentiment which they always bring about when they want to justify importing ICT goods or services, which I feel if you have that discourse, we may find each other because the licenses which we are paying out there and all those things, they are not aligning. But that's a side which I felt in terms of the Africa Free Continental Trade Area, you may want to have discussions around. My main worry why I chose to just take this opportunity to share with you colleagues, as Zimbabwe again, we know that from the head of state is saying there's re-engagement. And currently, there are discussions between Europe and Zimbabwe. We call them European Partnership Agreement. And right now we are at round 12. All along we were traveling okay until when we got to round 9 when we were in Madagascar. What we felt, our colleagues from there, they are really vicious, if I may put that word. They want us to lower the entry threshold for them to get into this market across the divide, consultants, goods and services, even the construction. So I don't know how best you can deal with this because right now, as it yesterday, the day before yesterday, the 31st, we sent them some figures which are very high. We're trying to protect our own industries here because this does not only affect the government institutions, but it affects you colleagues. So I hear you talking of these challenges and all, and I'm just saying to myself, if these colleagues can really drill deep down into some of the things which are forthcoming, because surely if we allow them those lower thresholds, it will be a challenge even for you, even these discussions which you are talking of Africa Free Continental Trade Area. So I thought I would just throw it in there so that in your next discussions, you really take these things serious because starting from next year, if that is opened up, yeah, the competition will be something else. I thought I would just make that remark in the intervention. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Good sir for those valuable insights. Yeah, as you said, I think it's a conversation that needs to be had and definitely needs to be continued. The concept that you talk of, I know China successfully implemented what they called the Chuko system, you know, where they, lowered taxes and provided a very conducive environment for new startups. Anyone who wants to venture into tech. And right now, I'm sure, maybe 80 to 90% of the devices in here, if you look underneath them, they're coming from China. In about 30 years, they managed to transform their country into a tech powerhouse. And I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to find a model that has worked elsewhere and see how we can also get it to fit in our own ecosystem, because I believe there's a multiplier effect. If we bring Amazon HQ here, if we bring electric vehicle manufacturers back here, then obviously the real estate is also going to go up, the land value, everything's going to go up, the tax base, and obviously talking about disposable incomes and everything. But I mean, let's continue this conversation on the sidelines. I'm sure still getting.
Yeah, sorry, Madam Convener. Just a quick one on those on that one. For public procurement space, we've got what we call domestic preferencing. Unfortunately, again, this is not being used. Under our section 29 of our Act, we allow to give more opportunities to our locals. We even go to drill down to say, under Section 8 of our regulations, for tertiary institutions, for the young, the youths, the women-owned businesses and all. So there was that debate, and ordinarily when we meet with people, they say there are no laws to that. They are there. Currently, we also need you to, especially like we're talking of those innovation hubs, how you support these people and having those patents and all. We just encourage our if under triple Ps, especially our business environment, because we don't want people to take up that space. Right now, when His Excellency launched EGP last week, I'm having global calls. Even some people are in the plans to come to Zimbabwe and trying to even train EGP when you are all here. So that's how serious people outside Zimbabwe can be. I thought I would also make that point. Thanks so much for indulging me.
Thank you very much. I'm not going to comment much on that. Otherwise, it's going to be a quick back and forth. I'm feeling the side eye is now piercing through me. So allow me to thank our industry captains, our key experts, the veritable titans of technology, our vanguards of value addition here, for sharing the valuable insights and ideas that we can use to improve our technological landscape, especially focusing on industry and value addition. Thank you very much, lady and gentlemen. And to the audience, I hope you guys are now looking at technology and industry through a different lens. And remember, as Madam Ikonet said, innovate or die. And if you want to survive, please see her for data-driven solutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. A round of applause as they go down. Thank you. A big, big, big thank you to you guys. May you please give them another round of applause as they go down.
I'm going to ask my panel to come and receive our tokens of appreciation. Thank you very much. Can somebody come and give me the tokens so that we hand them over to the panels? Sorry, Sharon, can you help him? You can't carry them. Yeah, that's okay. Yes, thank you. Please come through. Thank you. Thank you very much. A round of applause for our panelists, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I hand over to the next presentation.
Thank you so much. A round of applause.
Ladies and gentlemen, we did not serve the last for the least. In actual fact, coming from Tel 1, I actually have to show great cognizance of the next presentation because it's our regulator. Otherwise, ndinodzokera basa kusisina. So that's why we made sure that despite you guys being fatigued, we made sure that this presentation goes on. Before the presentation, we just want to give a brief profile of the Portra's Director General, who was supposed to be here with us, but instead sent us someone, the profile you'll get from Vector. I'll quickly rush through Dr. Machengete's profile. He's a holder of a Bachelor of Science degree in Economics from the University of Zimbabwe, a diploma in Purchasing and Supply from Harare Polytechnic. He's also a holder of a Master's Business Administration from Southern Cross University, Australia. He went further to attain a doctorate in Business Administration from the same university, for which he graduated with a distinction and was awarded the University Plaque for Outstanding Achievement. He also holds a certificate in Telecommunications Policy, Regulation, Management from University of Witwatersrand, South Africa. Dr. Machengete has over 30 years working experience in civil service, having started his career in 1985 as a research economist, for the government of Zimbabwe. He was deployed to China as the economic counselor at the Zimbabwe embassy, where he is credited for improving Sino-Zimbabwe relations to be what they are today. Between 1995 and 2001, he was senior economist and the head of coordination and secretariat in the government of Zimbabwe. In 2001, Dr. Machengete was deployed to Malaysia as Zimbabwe's deputy ambassador to the country. During that time, he was involved in creating ICT awareness in Zimbabwe. Upon his return to Zimbabwe in January 2006, Dr. Machengete was deployed to the Office of the President as an Assistant Director for Planning and Coordination. He was promoted to the position of Deputy Director Administration and further elevated to the position of Director Administration in 2011 in the Office of the President. In 2016, he retired as Deputy Director General before assuming office as Potra's Director General, where he sits currently. Dr. Machengete was one of the first lecturers of the Masters of Business Leadership degree program for the Bindura University Science and Technology, where he taught business research methods and marketing management courses from 2008 to 2016. He's currently lecturing in the Masters in Security and Intelligence for the same university. He's also a research thesis moderator at the same university. He served as the acting board chairman of the Traffic Safety Council of Zimbabwe board and on the boards of the Grain Marketing Board and Sino-Zimbabwe. He was the chairman of the African Advanced Telecommunications Institute Governing Council between March 2018 and February 2019. He's also the past chairman for the Communications Regulators Association of Southern Africa, also known as CRASA. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the man that is being represented here tonight.
And hearing that this is a company of learneds, the person that is going to represent him, she is a lawyer by profession and has worked in the ICT regulation, policy, and practice for over 10 years. She is the inaugural director of the Potra's Protection Unit, which was set up in May this year to operationalize the new mandate of Potras as the Data Protection Authority in Zimbabwe. Prior to her current position, she was the Potras Deputy Director of Legal Services. She is here representing, just a second, sorry. Prior to her current position, she was also the Potras Deputy Director of Legal Services. She is here representing the Director of the General of Potras. Please welcome Tsitsi Kario to stage. Keep claiming.
Good afternoon or good evening to you all. Good evening. Okay, I have a very difficult task because I can see everyone is tired. Despite the importance of the subject matter that I really wanted to address, and also taking cognizance of the fact that as Potras, we value this engagement with stakeholders. It forms part of our stakeholder initiatives, and that we are an open regulator when it comes to discussing issues and taking those on board to make sure that we regulate effectively within the nation, particularly when it comes to the new mandate on data protection. I would like to start also by acknowledging the minister, the two permanent secretaries, although in absentia, as well as the senior government officials that are here, and also to thank the president of Computer Society of Zimbabwe for giving Potras this opportunity to share our insights on the roadmap that we are taking as far as implementation of the Cyber and Data Protection Act is concerned. And I just want to say, Madam President, your concerns in your request to Potras are very much aligned with the research that we did recently in June. The Cyber and Data Protection Unit was set up in May 2023, so we are actually less than 6 months in office. And the request that you sent to Potras was there is limited understanding of this particular act. There is also limited appreciation of the expectations from POTRAs as the Data Protection Authority, and that it is important that we have this conversation as Computer Society of Zimbabwe and POTRAs. So I just wanted to say your observation as Computer Society of Zimbabwe is actually very correct when we look at the findings we actually came up with as POTRAs. There is something that's going on with the technology. I don't seem to be able to move the slides. Not sure. Oh, okay, that's fine now. So I'm sure you had the profile of the DG, and it's going to be very hard to stand in his shoes because those shoes are very big for me. I don't seem to. Okay. So in terms of statistics, I just wanted to actually say to you, your observations are very correct, that people don't appreciate what the Cyber and Data Protection Act is all about. So when the unit was set up, POTRAs actually took it upon itself to conduct what we called a snapshot survey to appreciate the ecosystem, because this is something that was new to us as well. We were focused on the telecommunications and the postal sector. And what we picked from about 1,200 Zimbabweans that were sampled, as well as about 100 companies that were sampled operating in Zimbabwe, was that 99% of Zimbabweans value their data privacy. This is something that is critical for you as businesses, as institutions, that as you evolve, as you transform in the different aspects, you make sure that you take note of the fact that 99% of Zimbabweans actually value data privacy. And what we also picked is that 73% of Zimbabweans are actually not aware of the Act, and 85% are unable to cite any of the rights that are actually enshrined in this Act. 77% don't even know what to do when there is a data breach or when there is a data leakage, when there's a data security that has actually taken place. 22% actually indicated to us they have experienced a data breach of some sort at some point, and they are not confident of the data controllers that exist in Zimbabwe. So there is an issue of trust. That as we collect personal information from citizens, they are saying the confidence score when it comes to collection of children's data is at 1.7 out of 5. When it then comes to the collection of adult data, the score is actually 2.8% out of 5. And the controllers, it seems citizens don't trust actually the way you collect their data, the way you process it, the way you store it, the way you transfer it, whether to the next company or to the next country outside Zimbabwe. And when it comes to data controllers, this is what we picked. 84% of data controllers in Zimbabwe actually process personal information through automated means. And what this means is, if we're an institution that use automated means to collect personal information, you have an obligation to designate a data protection officer. And what I actually heard from the previous discussion or the panel, there is a lot of automated decision-making about our personal information collected by controllers. Did we consent to the further processing of our information? When we subscribe to Econet, for example, when you subscribe to Tel1, for example, was it just on the basis of provision of data in terms of the megabits and so forth, or was it about me being able to transact in terms of voice calls or SMEs? Did I consent to further processing of my data as a citizen or as a subscriber of Econet or Tel1 or Net1 and so forth? So those are issues we need to look at, because the Act actually prohibits that automated decision-making where you then track my business issues, where you then track my purchasing trends, etc. That is not allowed in terms of the Cyber and Data Protection Act unless I've actually consented to that further processing. So I'm just going to look at the key points that I thought they are actually critical, but we can have another conversation even online with Computer Society of Zimbabwe members where we can actually discuss in detail the provisions of this act, as well as understanding what exactly are going to be your obligations. And I just wanted to also say that from the first quarter of 2024, Portras is actually going to launch a training program with the Harare Institute of Technology to train on data protection officers in Zimbabwe. It's going to be a new profession. There will be now data protection practitioners within the country because in our ecosystem, we don't have a lot of this. From the survey that we actually conducted, we picked from the 100 companies that we sampled, I think about 5 companies had trained or accredited data protection officers. So we saw it fit to have this snapshot survey, understand the ecosystem, and then come up with appropriate intervention measures. And one of the intervention measures that we've actually picked up is that there is lack of training, and 93% of controllers in Zimbabwe said they need dedicated training on how to implement this law, dedicated training for their controllers so that they will be able to comply with the provisions of the law. So in response to that, we have actually partnered with HIT, and we'll be rolling out this training first quarter of 2024. And we will be using our own local currency so that we take into account the needs of our own people, the small and medium enterprises that are also required to make sure that they comply with the law. And what we picked is that after notifying our citizens that there is need for controllers, that there is need for them to actually appoint or designate data protection officers, only 37.5% of data controllers in Zimbabwe across all sectors of the economy have actually complied with this requirement. And we noted that 63% ask for consent here and there, and most of it is actually oral. And coming 2025, we would need evidence of the fact that you have obtained consent when there is need for consent in a particular transaction, when we actually conduct the inspections to see whether you are actually processing personal information in accordance with the provisions of the law. So I just thought this snapshot survey was critical for you to appreciate where we are as a country in terms of the data protection ecosystem and the interventions. And for us, when we noted that 73% of the nation doesn't know this act, can't even cite a right that is provided for in the act, we then embarked on sensitization and awareness programs. And some of you have been participating in those online. We've been giving those online since June, July, August, online sensitization workshops, as well as the physical ones that were done at Portras offices. And this is a continuous process. And we believe this interaction with you is also part of that sensitization and awareness process. Let me also indicate that over and above all these statistics that I'm actually giving, we have taken note of the fact that people don't appreciate the role of Portras as the data protection authority. There's going to be a lot of what I call licensing of the data controllers, as well as licensing of the data protection officers in Zimbabwe. I just want to go to the last slide. Oh, okay, here. Okay. It seems it's sticking somewhere, somehow. Okay. When we look at the statistics that were being talked about earlier on in terms of current ICT utilization there, if we understand and appreciate this current context, and then the technologies that you were talking about in terms of emerging technologies, you can actually see that there is really need for us to have laws around data privacy, around data protection. And one of the things that we have actually noted in the Act is that as you innovate as IT professionals, and as you innovate as IT people or companies, there is actually a need for you to make sure that you infuse what we call privacy by design, not to think after later on about design issues or privacy issues after that. I seem to have a challenge with the mouse. Yeah, with the pointer. It's not responding that fast. Because I am actually between you and the bomber, I am actually going to, is it working now? Okay, yeah, that's faster. I was going to discuss all these issues and probably pause there and say, what is it that we have done as Portras to facilitate the adoption of emerging technologies? And we just wanted to share with you as Computer Society of Zimbabwe that We have actually offered 5G spectrum for pilot purposes or pilot testing. And so far, Econet has actually taken up that offer, and they have started rolling out on a pilot basis the rolling out of 5G technology, which I think you have been discussing since yesterday, as well as part of today. So as the regulator, we are actually facilitating the uptake or the introduction of emerging technologies in our system or in our country. And we believe that it is going to open a lot of opportunities for different businesses as you look at different ways of transforming your businesses. I was actually talking to Telco in the morning and noting that when they started as an internet service provider, and you can see how they have evolved as a telco into a digital company. And all this is being facilitated by these new technologies that are actually emerging. And we just wanted to say, as part of our mandate to make sure that we have created a level playing field, we are going to be auctioning or offering 5G spectrum on a commercial basis in the first quarter of 2024. So this is something that you can think of as businesses to leverage on that and make sure that you take advantage of that. We have also this converged licensing framework, which is under Statutory Instrument 12 of 2021, which allows different categories, even smaller players can actually enter the market and take advantage of the spectrum that is there, as well as the licensing framework that is there. And the question there was basically to say, is your business strategically positioned to leverage on these new things that are going to be coming in the first quarter of 2023? So I'm just going to rush to the last slides so that I don't take a lot of time for you, but I just wanted you to appreciate that the Cyber and Data Protection Act, a lot of people actually confused because in December 2021, the law was promulgated as the Data Protection Act initially. And then it was republished after they picked that there were cyber issues in there which had to be taken note of, and then it was republished as the Cyber and Data Protection Act. So people are using the copy that is on the internet, which is not correct, which talks of 11.22. The correct citation is actually Cyber and Data Protection Act, Chapter 12.07. And the key provisions there are that POTRAZ has been designated as the Data Protection Authority of Zimbabwe, and it provides or it empowers us as data subjects to have certain rights when it comes to the processing of our personal information. And those rights are ranged to your right to object to the processing of information at any stage, the right to have access to your information. So I can walk into a bank and ask for the personal information that they have about me. I have a right to the correction of that particular personal information, and I have a right to tell maybe I was attending a gym the last during COVID era, and now I no longer attend that gym. I have a right to tell them that please delete the personal information that you have about me. So those are some of the rights that have been given to citizens to be able to be empowered in this digital era where a lot of their personal information is collected by different data controllers. And what is also important is the obligations that you have as data controllers when it comes to the processing of that particular information. And what is critical, I've also heard a lot of people also saying the law is confused. When you look at the way it was numbered, the numbering is not correct and so forth. They forget to look at the fact that there were consequential amendments to this using this particular act. So it also amended the Criminal Code, which is the Criminal Codification and Law and Reform Act in Zimbabwe. And in there, it then provided for an array of crimes that are aligned to the environment or the era, the digital era that we are living in. And that is a subject for another day, because I would take another 30 minutes or even an hour talking about the different crimes that are now provided for under the Criminal Code through amendment, which was done under the Cyber and Data Protection Act. The law also amended the Criminal Procedure and Evidence Act in that it now provides for admission or admissibility of electronic evidence in a court of law. And it also amended the Interceptions of Communications Act, to make sure that there is created what is called a cybersecurity committee, as well as the cybersecurity monitoring center in the country. So those are some of the issues, and our role as Potras is basically to be regulating, and under the pillar of regulation, there is a new era that is going to come from 2024, which is next year, that we are going to be licensing all the controllers across the economy. And the license categories are actually in 3 tiers. There is the small and medium enterprises. There is also those who are in the large enterprises and the public sector. So when we do the licensing, we are going to be promulgating the regulations to do that. And there's also going to be a certification of data protection officers, and we're going to be ensuring that we do enforcement. And a lot of work around advocacy, advisory, as well as international cooperation is something that we are actually working on as Potras. So even before you start collecting personal information, you definitely need to inform the principle of transparency. You need to inform the data subject why you are collecting their data, the extent to which you're going to be using that data, and they need to be able to consent to issues to do with further processing. So basically the principles are that you should collect as minimum data as possible from a data subject. You cannot just be collecting all and sundry for whatever speculative purposes. And these are issues that we'll be watching out for, particularly in this digital era. And whatever data you are collecting must be provided for in a particular law, or there must be a legitimate interest as to why you are collecting it. You need to also indicate to the data subject for how long you're going to be keeping their personal information for. And you also need to make sure that there is accuracy, integrity, and confidentiality, and there is a reason for collecting that information. So one of the obligations which I thought I needed to actually highlight to you is that you definitely need to regularize your operations as data controllers going forward. We need to be notified in terms of Section 20 of the Act of the automated processing that you are taking place. We did issue a notice or a circular in 2022 where we requested data controllers not just to notify us of their data protection officers, but of the processing activities that they are carrying out. And that we need, because in terms of the Act, we are required, Section 23 says we must keep a register of all personal information activation or processing activities in Zimbabwe. And that register is open for public inspection. So the public has a right to come and inspect what is PRAS collecting in terms of the personal information. They need to know. And that register is actually going to be kept under Potras. So you need to regularize your operations, make sure you have notified us of the processing activities, particularly to do with personal information that you are doing, and then we keep this in a register which is open for public inspection. You have to do what we call data protection impact assessments and submit your reports to the authority, particularly 84% of you that are collecting through automated means the personal information. And when you're a public authority, there is actually a requirement for you to make sure that you have appointed a DPO, because a lot of personal information is actually processed by public authorities. And if you're a controller that also processes data for more than 3,000 data subjects, you have to appoint a DPO and publish your DPO on your websites, in newspapers, so that if a data subject is not happy about something, the principle of transparency kicks in. You are transparent about the person who is taking care of the processing of people's personal information, who is the interface between the authority as well as your company, who trains the in-house staff about data protection issues. And if there are any changes within the appointment of your DPO, you need to notify us within 3 months that the DPO has left and now we have a new DPO. And there is actually the issue to do with the qualifications, which we have received a lot of questions about. What type of qualifications should a DPO have? And we are saying this is a new profession, a new practitioner altogether being created in Zimbabwe. I know in Europe, they've got a lot of these DPOs and they earn quite a lot of money. And the discussion or the conversation has been around whether companies in Zimbabwe can actually afford one, or we will just appoint someone who is already in an existing position to be able to take up that role as a DPO. And the recommendation that we would make as the authority is that someone who is involved in the implementation of the business of the company should not actually be a DPO, like your CISO should not be a DPO, and even your IT person should not be a DPO, because he can't report a breach to himself, because the DPO is there more of a compliance person who then monitors the processes within the organization to ensure that they are actually compliant. And we are going to ask, soon after the promulgation of the regulations in the first quarter, you have to make sure that as a controller, you have trained your DPO within the first 12 months of the regulations coming into force. And if you fail, because we are going to have certification and annual CPD points for your DPO, because this is an evolving sector, this is an evolving area, so we definitely need that need them to be aligned with all those things. And some of the duties of the DPO are actually mentioned in the law. And what I just wanted to also say is that as controllers, you have an obligation to put in place security measures, and this is an issue that you need to invest in, and which is why we always say the discussion should be beyond the IT people. It should be at the board level. So it's no longer business as usual. It's now a strategic issue to make sure that you comply with the provisions of the law. And notify, this is a critical one, Section 19 asks of all data controllers when there is a data breach to make sure that you have actually reported the data breach to the authority, for the specific reason that we need to coordinate the different cyber breaches, we need to coordinate the different data breaches and be able to guide issues around that. So we are saying, as you innovate, yes, you have put your door there, but you need to think about the solutions that you are providing. Is there privacy by design? Is it design privacy embedded in your design? So the solutions that you're coming up with, let's not think of a con call later on to try and lock up the door when we've already designed, because your system or your network will not be as effective or as secure as possible. So as innovators in here, as computer companies in here coming up with solutions, let's also look at issues to do with privacy by design. And some of the sanctions, I thought this is critical, is that there are criminal sanctions that are going to be provided, that are actually provided for in the law. There is imprisonment of a period not exceeding 7 years. There's a criminal fine of up to $1,000. And then there are also administrative fines of up to $20,000 for failing to comply with this law. I'm not going to be talking about the set at the moment because we don't have time at all. This is my last slide where I'm actually giving you a roadmap in terms of how we are taking issues as portraits. Now we are encouraging voluntary compliance as the Data Protection Authority. I've actually circulated a flyer indicating some of the obligations we have and our mandate and our promise to you. And in 2022, we continue to encourage 2023 voluntary compliance. But come 2024, we'll start licensing controllers. In 2025, we will start the compliance inspections. And the penalties that I've actually indicated, in particular from an administrative point of view, will kick in. I hope I've tried to indicate some of the obligations for you. So all I'm saying is, as you embrace new technologies, also think of the intersection between the transformation of your business and the context of the Cyber and Data Protection Act to ensure that you have changed your policies, you have changed your tools, your processes, as well as your security measures, your consumer engagement mechanisms. You have reskilled your staff to make sure that they assist you in complying with the law, and that you have applied for your license as a data controller once that kicks in. And you just take note of the fact that I mentioned earlier on, and also what the colleague from CBZ actually mentioned, that they had to leave out companies from Zimbabwe and opt for a company outside Zimbabwe because of trust issues, because of the data breaches, the risks they couldn't take on board. So it is now a strategic business decision for you to make sure that you comply with privacy laws. Otherwise, people will not be confident to transact with you as a corporation. I'll end on that note. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. A big round of applause as she goes down.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I know you don't help ladies when they're going down. Anyway, I'll do the honors.
I'm not jealous, Victor.
Okay.
It's okay. But she can wait. I think we've got something for her.
Okay.
And Sharai is responsible for running around. Just know that, ma'am. Sharai from Till One. Yeah. This is our regulator. She's the boss to our boss, to my boss. So, yeah. So I think Blessing has something for you, eh?
On behalf of the Computer Society of Zimbabwe, we would like to thank you very much for the presentation on the Cyber and Data Protection Act. We send our regards to the DG, and we will be in touch. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
So this is actually for you, not for the DG.
It's for the DG.
All right.
A round of applause if she sits down.
Okay, so I think Blessing, we will be asking you and your team to come forth. There are more gifts to be shared. So I'm going to call on people and their representatives.
Okay. Just because everyone is wearing a cap from ZimSwitch, I'm going to call the guys to come to the front and talk to us. May you please give them a round of applause? At least if you don't want to, because you're wearing their cap. Can you clap hands for them? They should be getting the loudest clap. You can't.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I understand I'm probably the last obstacle, to the bomber. So I guess you have received these, these pamphlets on ZPay. This is, maybe let's just use one slide. We had 10 slides, but just one slide. The next slide. I'm Terence Mananga from ZimSwitch, and basically, as ZimSwitch, we're on a mission to modernize mainly corporate payments. I think most consumers are spoiled for choice when it comes to, payment solutions. So we implemented a solution called ZPay based on the ISO 20022 standard. It's a global standard. And why I'm mentioning this, I think we've been talking about AI, we've been talking about, all these data-driven, I would say, initiatives. This being a global standard, this system being based on a global standard, it means we can do a lot more than what I would say the traditional systems have been offering. So if you check, when it comes to scalability, so that we respond to your needs, this is the solution. You talk about interoperability, because again, we're using a global standard just for you to appreciate regionally. The SADC TCIB, or Transactions Cleared on an Immediate Basis initiative, is actually using this standard. SWIFT actually started a project in 2018 to move to this standard. So when it comes to payments, we would say the world is drifting to this standard. So when we are coming up with our solutions, we have that in mind, and we are now calling upon the fintechs, all the fintech companies that are represented here. Let's collaborate. Let's work together to come up with solutions for the industry. And you also find, because of that standard, we basically I can support. Our solution is very flexible when it comes to its architecture. We can integrate directly. We've done the first project of integrating into banks. Now we are integrating into corporates or organizations. And because I don't have permission, but we've integrated to 2 government entities to actually facilitate, to help them, facilitate our collections, for, I would say, statutory obligations. So with lots of solutions, as you can see, the solution supports B2B payments, business to persons, government to business, business to government, government to persons, persons to government, person to person, and persons to business. And this is already in place, and this is already happening. The standard offering is what you are accustomed to. You want to do your bulk payments, you just come up with a file, 5,000 payments, you want to pay your employees, you go to a portal, you upload, and bang, you know, your salaries have actually received, your employees have already received their salaries. But the customized integrations are the ones that I think outside this room, if you have an appetite as a fintech or any other organization, we can have a chance to talk. And then what is coming maybe after this standard offering, so don't move to any slide. What is coming after this? The authenticated debit orders. I'm sure there were speakers yesterday that spoke about authenticated debit orders. So I think insurance companies, you'll be interested to have a chat with us. And then we are also working with the SADC TCIB project team to be the point to originate transactions or to facilitate cross-border transactions within Zimbabwe. So we are basically providing a centralized integration point for all financial institutions for transactions that are going in or out. And with several benefits to the industry, to the regulators, they've got a view of what is actually coming through. We are also working on PAPs, and I'm mentioning these because they also work off the ISO 20022 standard, the Pan-African settlement system initiative. It's also based on the ISO 20022. We're working on corporate bill payments through a request to pay, again using that standard. So for any corporate payment solutions, whether standard or customized, we just invite you to chat with us. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, ZimSwitch. Thank you so much. A round of applause as it goes to sit down. Just to run down on our program, before I call in Madam President to come in front, I'm going to call Ma'am Blessing to give us a vote of thanks for the 3 inclusive days that we've had. I'm pretty sure you've learned a lot. Over to you, ma'am.
Amazing, amazing. It's already 3 days. I can't believe it. The time that has flown by from preparations up to this point, it's amazing that it has all come to pass. It is my honor this evening, ladies and gentlemen, to thank you, our delegates, for being a part of this conference. The conference is not yet ended. We end tomorrow, but the in-conference days end today. I would like to thank you all for your diligent participation. Even though it's well after 4 now, I can still see your lively faces. And it's been 2 grilling days of absorbing information from all angles. Thank you very much. A round of applause to you, our delegates. I would like to thank our valued sponsors, Liquid Technologies, Dandem Tande, Telco, Econet Wireless, eSolutions, Procom, DFA, Tel1, ZimSwitch, Gateway Streams, The Independent, and Baker Tilly, as well as ICDL. Thank you very much for making this event a success. I would like to thank the dedicated organizers for all their effort. I must mention that all this effort is voluntary. All this effort that you see, all the members of Harare chapter, if you could just wave wherever you are, thank you so much for the voluntary service to make this conference a success. Lastly, I would like to extend my most gratitude to the vast amount of speakers that we've had. Thank you so much for the wealth of information and insights that you have delivered to our conference. I invite you to continue to partner with CSZ in all the future engagements and events that we're going to have. At this moment, I'm going to call upon the President so that we can extend our gratitude to the speakers and sponsors. Needless to say, I want to thank everybody, including all the government officials that have managed to be with us and our fellow ICT associations from across the borders, Botswana, Malawi, Zambia, and Nigeria. Thank you so much. At this moment, I'm going to call upon our panel participants to just come up front so that we may give you tokens of appreciation. Starting with the FinTech panel, Mr. Agrippa Mgwagwa, Mnyaradzi Mafi, Michael Chaoruka, Marshall Nyabeze, and Vusi Ndebele. President. They should come through this way. For the health tech panel, Ralph Ralph Nyakabao, Isaac Manito, Dr. Gift Ghana, and Nyaradzo. Not yet. Dumisani Nkala, if she's still in. No, she's not. Okay. Mr. Clarence. No. Mr. Ruskwa, sir, please. Mr. Joseph Machira. I believe Dr. Panache and Kudamsa Siwa are in absentia. Yeah. Mr. Gibson Karakate. Okay. Our panel moderators, Benlo Ruredzo, Ashley Chimanda, Blessing Mzawazi, Tiapo Velempini. What I have to quick. This last one is to you, Madam President. Thank you very much for enabling this conference. Can I have my phone? Okay, so from here on, I'm just going to advise how we're going to move for this evening and for tomorrow. For this evening, for those attending the Minister's Cocktail at the Palm River, the buses will depart from this venue, from Elephant Hills, at 6:30. So those attending the Minister's Cocktail, sorry to give you short notice, please be ready at the front foyer by 6:30. For the rest, going to Boma, those are going to the Boma dinner. That's the rest of us who have not been invited to the cocktail. The buses will pick up from here at 6:40. So that's just 10 minutes difference, 6:40. Those going to the Boma, please be ready, okay? Right, in terms of tomorrow, our networking activities. Those going to the Chobe, your passport is required. The pickup time from Elephant Hills is 6:45. 6:45 a.m. 6:45 a.m. Yes. Please, 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 let's put on our alarm clocks, whatever we need to do, rest early. The pickup time is 6:45. I'm saying the pickup time. This means you have to be ready by 6:45 to go, not to wake up, okay? This trip is going to be out the whole day. We expect to be back by 6 p.m. So it's an all-day event. Please note, the service providers have already been paid based on your indications from the registration, the polling, and even the registration that we've done today. We kindly ask you to please show, because the service providers have already been paid, okay? Then next we have whitewater rafting. The pickup is 7 a.m. So you'll be picked up at 7 a.m. here and expect to be back by 2 p.m. Lunch will be served at the top of the gorge after rafting. Please take note, those going for whitewater rafting. Those going for the bridge slide, this is being done by Shearwater Adventures. Pickup will be at 9:30. So it will depend on how busy the day will be at the bridge, but expect to be done by 11:30 a.m. Then head for lunch at 12 midday. Clients should be back at the hotel by 1:30. So lunch for those going for the bridge slide will be at Shearwater Explorers Village. Lastly, the sunset cruise will be at 4:15, and delegates are expected to be back by 6:45 p.m. You'll be picked for Sunset Cruise at 4:15 and back at 6:45 p.m. For those all clients have to breakfast before their pickups. Breakfast will be served from 6 a.m. for those residing at Elephant Hills. For those residing at Rainbow, breakfast is from 6:30 a.m. However, since you are a small number of delegates, you may request breakfast to be packed when you get back to the hotel today. So you can advise the hotel where you are staying to have your breakfast packed so that you are ready for the networking excursion. So we've also put the same instructions on the WhatsApp group. Please kindly read them or extend them to those that are not in this conference room but have to attend to the various activities. Are there any questions? The game drive will start at 4:15 p.m. tomorrow for those going for the game drive.
Okay, we are attending to each and every one of you, okay?
Game drive.
They just wanted to confirm, is the game drive the same as Sunset plus Sunset Cruise?
Okay,
It's
sorry for that.
Okay.
So the game drive will start at 7 a.m. Those that are doing game drive and Sunset Cruise, you will do the game drive first in the morning from 7 a.m. and be back at 2:30.
So you have two in one.
Then you go for the Sunset Cruise from 4:15. Is that clearer now? Okay.
The lovers of things.
All right. So I'm going to just hand back to the MCs so that we close off the evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Blessing. A round of applause. Blessing. The past 2 hours, we never got so much chance, unlike we got now. You know what? These people love joy. So thank you so much for planning this for 3 days. It has been a beautiful program. We want to give you a round of applause for the last time for Blessing. What you got to say?
Remember, Blessing was this year's convener, and again, ladies and gentlemen, I think she really deserves another round of applause. I think she has something else to say.
Yeah. Also, before we finish, I'm just going to ask the cameraman to come. There are people that I feel we should just get a picture before we leave.
Sorry, so I had forgotten one more thing. As the president indicated, we needed a photo of you, a group photo. So I don't know what's the best position. Maybe Kombo can help. Center stage. So if everybody could come upstairs, center stage. And next year's conference. Next year's conference is what we have in mind. Thank you very much.
The cameraman is suggesting he's only expecting people that wear glasses because those are the UIT people. So all those that wear glasses and those who don't, may you please come through.
I was saying our conference, our summit for next year will be in Cape Town for 2024. Thank you very much.
Conveya manyama.
picture. I had forgotten.
Okay, DJ, can I have my mic on? Can I have my mic? Hello, 1, 2, 1. It's working. Okay.
Seated?
Yeah, you can sit there.
Okay. Can I sit here?
Yeah, the Zimbabwean president. Are you coming? Yeah? Okay, so it's fine. You can sit.
Okay.
Where's Malawi? I don't see Malawi. It's fine. It's fine. Where is the Malawi president? I don't see him. Blessing? President for Malawi, is he still around? Okay, so this is what we're gonna do. I'm requesting the ones in the front there. I want you to be sitting on the red pavement there. Yeah, to be sitting. Yeah. Then if you're not gonna fit sitting on the red pavement, I want you to be standing at the back there. Okay, can you try to make sure your tags are in the right position? They are facing the front.